It's actually a really good question and one a lot of people have right now because college is expensive and the affordability is really something a lot of families are concerned about. In terms of affording it, I think planning ahead is key. Once you have a child, if that's something, think it's going to be in their future, saving, I think is good. If you haven't done that, which many of us haven't, I think understanding the difference between merit aid and need-based financial aid is really important. So merit aid is something based on your merits. Schools are looking to appeal to certain students and then therefore will give them some grants and scholarships to try and woo them into coming to the school. And then there's need-based financial aid, but it essentially has to do with your income. They deem whether or not you can afford to pay their cost of attendance or tuition, their room and board, or if you need some support. And that's usually the FAFSA, which you probably heard of, that will determine that. So think about and try and understand need-based versus merit aid, and that will help you determine which schools might make sense for you to consider. Another good question, and one I get a lot actually, grades continue to be the most important factor for colleges when looking at applications. They really want to see how you've done in the curriculum where you are. And along with that, the rigor. The rigor is the level of the coursework that you've taken. So ideally, you would combine those two and you would have rigor, very difficult classes that meet your needs, though, and also do really well in those classes. The other stuff, like, the activities and the volunteer work, that all comes into play as well because they do really want to see the full picture of the student. And I think the best way to think about it is how you would contribute to their school because they really want kids on campus that are going to be involved and take advantage of the opportunities that are given to them. So I think having the schools see that is also important. But grades still are really number one. Some schools are bringing back the SAT, so that's something to consider also for some schools, but something, it's kind of ever changing. So important to stay on top of. This is a question I get all the time right now. And it's a good question. And I have to say the answer is kind of, it depends. It depends on a particular student, their list of schools, maybe how they did on the PSAT or pre-ACT. In general, I would say take it as a baseline. It won't hurt you to have taken it, but knowing that they may not be needed at a school, you may not submit them if they're not in the range of the schools that you're looking at. But also, I say take them because the schools are ever changing on this, and some are telling us and telling you all that they will require them. So that's something just to keep an eye on, whether the schools need them or not. Depending on you or your child, I would probably have different answers. Yeah. That is another tough one because it really does vary in terms of the number of schools. And I would say, my opinion, it's gotten a little bit out of hand in terms of the number that students are applying to, but I get it. I mean, I have a high school senior, so I understand what it's like out there in terms of college admission. I'd say the more work you can do ahead of time to understand the whole system of education and university, colleges, and what they're looking for will help you. So the more educated you are on the entire process should help you to narrow down the list of schools. Visit schools, get a feel if you're more interested in big, SEC schools versus your child is better suited maybe to have smaller classes and a smaller campus feel. Like, the more you can understand your child and your child can understand themselves, the better they're going to be able to narrow that down a bit. In terms of numbers, again, I think it's very child dependent because if you're applying to a lot of selective schools, highly selective schools where, the admissions rate is really low, the acceptance rate is really low, I get it. Like, you kind of are throwing a dart at the wall and hoping something lands, and you may be completely qualified applicant, as most students are, and still not be admitted. So, understood, if you're applying to a lot of selective schools, that number is probably going to be higher. But when it comes to looking at those safe schools, I don't think there's any reason to have 5 to 10 safe schools. Pick a couple that you know you're going to like, and they're the ones that you'll apply to. And if you don't see yourself there, don't apply. Try and find safe schools or likely schools that you really would thrive at. So the number is, it depends. The right fit, that's what we're all looking for, right? Because we want to find that place for our kids where they'll thrive and flourish and grow and meet friends and hopefully get a job, right? At some point with this college degree. And finding that right fit, I think, starts with knowing your kid, them knowing themselves, and having good conversations surrounding this whole process. The more that the student understands him or herself and their values and what's important to them, the easier this process actually can be in terms of figuring that out. The parents are huge in that process and helping them find that fit and talking through that with them, showing them a big school, a big university, and maybe a small private liberal arts school, talking to them about the financial situation of your family. And that varies a lot depending on the student and the family. And it's okay. I always recommend having those conversations early on so that the student is really aware of what could be options and maybe what might not be. And the more that I think you understand the system of financial aid and merit money and just the whole college admissions process, the better you're going to be able to figure out the total fit for your child. Okay, so this is important to know. Early decision, you apply early. If you're accepted, it's binding and you're going to go there. Early decision is great for some applicants and some students, and they're the ones that have really done their homework and they find a school that they just feel like this is great. It's that fit that everyone is looking for. Has the major, it's the climate they want, it's the overall vibe they want. They feel like they have the academic and financial fit for the family. So all the things everyone says works. You apply early decision, you're admitted, you're saying you're going there. So then case closed, done. Awesome. Lots of kids do early decision and it's wonderful. The thing with early decision, however, is that you are committing to that. So you're withdrawing the rest of your application and you're not going to see if you get into other places, if financial aid offers are better, or if merit offers are better at other schools. You're going with that offer. So if you understand that and you apply early decision or admitted, then you're done with the process. Early action is you apply early, you'll hear back earlier than the regular decision, but it is not binding. So you don't have to accept that offer. You can then see what else ends up on the table for you in the spring. So both good depending on the needs of the particular student and the family. Standing out in a competitive applicant pool is a good question and one that a lot of people are looking to figure out. I would say the best way is to have a hook. I mean, this is a standout piece. I've seen students that are excellent athletes, right? They stand out in a competitive applicant pool. I've seen students who are really involved with specific causes and volunteer a lot. They stand out. Kids who have done a lot of research in a particular area, maybe even published research, they stand out. I also think it depends on what the schools are looking for. So standing out to me might look different than standing out to someone else. But I would say the above and beyond is where the standout is. And I always think if there's someone else in your school that's kind of doing similar things as you, you're probably not standing out among a highly selective applicant pool. And that's not to say that all of those things aren't great that you're doing. And if you're enjoying them, you should continue to do them. But if the question is how to stand out, that's a good, I think, way for you to determine on your own whether or not these things are actually standing out that your child is doing. If two of their buddies are also doing it, probably not going to stand out when there's thousands of other like-minded students applying for the same spot. Recommendation letters should be written by someone who knows the student. That's probably pretty obvious, but someone who knows them well. It's going to do more than they were in my class, they have an A, they were a student that contributed daily. I mean, it's got to be deeper than that. You would want it to be deeper, more personalized, someone who's going to give examples of how they contributed to the class and what sort of energy they brought to the environment, with whether it be debate or helping other students. So a teacher, a coach, a counselor, someone who knows the student. I would say probably not a senior year teacher if they've only had them for that year, because we're only going to have usually 2 to 3 months before then you're going to be asking them to write. So that is not going to hold as much weight as maybe someone that's had your student in 11th grade for a full year, or 10th or 11th grade, ideally maybe even had them was their coach and also taught them in a class. So overall, you're looking for someone who really knows you. I would say parents can be involved. Sometimes I hear like you shouldn't be involved in all, and it's a lot. I mean, I have a senior right now, so she went through this, and it is a lot for them. They are playing sports. They're involved in extracurricular activities. They're going to their classes. They're having hard classes. They're trying to be a senior and enjoy their last year. And then they have this whole other thing thrown on them, which includes checking their emails, which I mean, checking emails is not what these kids do these days, right? They have Snapchat and text. So this whole email and portal process that we're asking them to do is new to them. And it's also really important. So I think the best way you can help them is just to stay organized with that sort of thing and talk to them up front about how you can best work on that together and where you can be helpful. I wouldn't say just have their emails and check them without them knowing, but I would say talk to them about this whole process and that it's going to be a lot, and where can you help them? Like, what are areas you can help them to make this entire process for them to achieve it and them feel that in the end they achieved it, with you really partnering them, helping with them. And who knows, that could be just like, maybe they say, can you help me with my lunch every day? Because that's just something that I can get off my plate. Great. Or can you help me with these portals? I'm getting lost, or I'm feeling like I'm missing my emails, or I'm getting a ton of spam with my emails. Because, I mean, unfortunately, these kids are giving the same emails they're using for their American Eagle and Sephora coupons, right? So they're inundated with all kind of marketing ads for their favorite restaurants and stores, also with their college application stuff. So it does get lost. So just talking to your kid and figuring out the best way you can help them while giving them the tools to do it on their own. So the stress is real. They have a lot on their plate, these kids. And I think recognizing that, talking to them about it is key. They're going to feel overwhelmed at points. And it's a process in which they don't really know what the outcome's going to be. It's sort of like, maybe I've done everything right and I still don't know if it's going to be a yes. And that in itself is overwhelming for many students, especially super high achieving students. This process can be particularly grueling because they're writing tons of essays, lots of short answers. They're asking for letters of recommendation while still doing all of the things in terms of their activities and their sports and their volunteer work and their research. And they're still trying to get the high marks on grades and preparing for AP exams. So acknowledging that all to your son or daughter is important, and helping them where you can. Being supportive as much as possible with where they say they need it. I think that's the key. Communicating with them early on, saying, I know we're going into this. I know it's going to be, I'm here to help you. And I'm also, here to push you, because I think that combination, understanding your child and where the helping ends, the pushing starts, and where the pushing has to end are really important. And every single student is really different on that. I have two kids. One's a junior in college and one's a senior in high school. And they're very different in terms of the approach with help. So only you as a parent will know that. You have to trust your instinct and knowing your kid for 18 years and how they're best motivated and how you can communicate with them to be able to be the best support for them. A college consultant helps in a lot of different ways. One is it's your child's senior year, right? It's the last year you have with them. And the last thing you want to do is this the entire year. And it happened. I've seen it happen. I mean, I've even had bouts of it with my own too, where I think having someone else kind of do the nagging, which look, it ends up with us moms that unfortunately are the ones who get that job. It seems like, at least from conversations with a lot of my friends and working with a lot of the families that we've worked with, to take that away, I think is gold, right? Like having someone else, and guess what? They listen to us, right? When I ask students to get an essay to me by a deadline, they do it because you've created these wonderful kids who, respect authority and adults, and they get it to me and they're happy to get it to me, where you would nag and nag and nag to get that done, and maybe with an eye roll. So I think it's nice to have a partner in this, even for parents to even vent to and say, what do I do? They're really stressed, or what do you think about this option? Along with the student having someone to do the same with and to help guide along the way. In my experience, just allowing your relationship with your child to just enjoy that senior year, that kind of last hurrah together, without having this looming college process and decision, which essentially takes up most of the year. I mean, it starts from the summer before senior year. Applications are due, early ones November, regular January, February, and then you're talking March, April. March decisions, April you're visiting schools, boom, we're at prom, graduation, and then they're gone. So if someone else is helping with that process and you can just be mom or dad and enjoy it and help, you can't get that time back. So I would say, as much as the strategy and the guidance and all of those things are important, I would say the sounding board and the person that's knowledgeable, that can also be supportive of your child as a knowledgeable adult in the field, allows you to just be mom or dad. I would say, as a first step, it's a good idea to visit a few campuses with no pressure behind it. So maybe in 9th or 10th grade, just visit a couple of campuses. I don't recommend starting with a super selective school, because it might never be an option, and then the process might feel all downhill from there. So I would just go to what's easy, what's local. I'm in the Philadelphia area. When we did it, we went to the University of Delaware. We went to the places we graduated from. My husband went to Drexel, so we visited Drexel and went to the bookstore. When we were on vacations, different places, we were down in Williamsburg, so we went and walked through William and Mary. Like just casual, so that they can start to get a feel for even, what is this? What do different campuses look like? And where do I think I might fit? And that can change, right? Especially if we're starting earlier. But I think just helping them understand and get a feel for the different types of campuses and the distances. I mean, when we visited schools, we said, okay, we're driving. Like, what do you think about this drive? It was 4.5 hours. What did it feel like? This is how long it would take us to get back and forth every time you come home for Thanksgiving, for fall break, for spring break. Or if we're flying, we're probably not getting home for those. Starting to do those visits and then having those small conversations earlier, I think better, just to start to get the feel. And then from there, if they have a particular major, doing some research, connecting them with their school counselor, because there are lots of resources within either public or private schools that students can really benefit from.